Welcome to another edition of the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast. I'm Donald Grodoff, family coach with FamilyOCD.com and FocusedHealthyFamily.com. In the Invisible Wheelchair Podcast series, I delve into the hidden characteristics of OCD, anxiety, and anxiety disorders. The things that most people don't see, that are behind closed doors and shut within the mind about anxiety. My goal with these podcasts is to bring about awareness of Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, or OCD. Understand that I am not a doctor, therapist, or counselor, and the content, information, resources, and ideas that are talked about and brought up here in these podcasts are things that I have used, discovered, or have been recommended to me, and I always recommend to seek additional professional help in finding solutions for yourself. Thank you for listening and enjoy the podcast.
The podcast you're about to hear was recorded and posted earlier in 2019 and is being posted now as part of the Best of 2019. So enjoy this podcast from the past as part of our Best of 2019. Thank you.
This podcast was recorded May 29th, 2019. This is podcast number 31, How to Be a Compassionate OCD Coach. Let me first in this define what I mean by compassionate coach. A compassionate coach is a person who supports and encourages and helps a person suffering with OCD who is going through ERP, Exposure Response Prevention Therapy. And this could be a friend, it could be a parent, it could be a relative, it could be a coach, it could be a therapist. And their support is done in a positive, uplifting, yet firm method. This is not somebody that's going to be a military drill sergeant. That will not work. So I kind of came up with this idea of compassionate coach as a way of being firm but gentle at the same time. In our own case here in our family with the OCD, I was always reminded that, by my wife that this was still our daughter. And there was a loving daughter inside that OCD beast that was happening. And so I kind of came up with this idea of being a compassionate coach, remembering and caring about the person, but being firm enough to help support them and get them through it. I also call it kind of the impassioned cheerleader, giving them the encouragement to go on even when they don't feel like it. So in this job, they will have to watch somebody who they possibly care or love deeply go through a really tough emotions and a hard experience. So it's a really tough job. And these are some of the things you'll need to be able to do as a compassionate coach. One, you help them begin and follow the steps of ERP, Exposure Response Prevention. And if you don't know what that is, look back at the archives on invisiblewheelchair.com and you'll be able to see in there, I think I did 1 or 2 on ERP therapy. I talk about it a lot. Number 2, keep them on track on doing daily work as they need to do. And this ERP takes methodical daily work. So encourage them in a positive and uplifting but firm way. Stop doing any compensations or accommodations to their OCD. And what that means is you don't want to be doing compulsions for them. You don't want to support them in their hand washing by giving them more soap or letting them go longer and longer with it. That's feeding the OCD. So you've got to be there to encourage them to do it differently. Not to do it for them, but to do it differently. Help the rest of the family or the community of support they have around them follow along with the plan, so they're not accommodating or doing the compulsions or criticizing, but yet they're supported and they understand. And the next one's very important. Help educate yourself and the others in the family and community of support on OCD and how it works. Letting the other members of the family know what this means, what's going on, so they can understand and work with them in a supportive way, not criticize. And at the same sense, the last one is maintain your own lifestyle. It's very important for the caregiver and the compassionate coach to be able to maintain their own health, maintain their own sanity during this, because that is extremely important. When you think about, like if you fly in an airplane, they talk about, in case of an emergency, the air things drop down the little cup, to put it over yourself first before you do your children, so that you are in good shape to be able to take care of your children. You shouldn't really be deviating off of the normal in your life to compensate for the OCD. So here are some of the guidelines for a compassionate coach. You got to help them fight against this OCD, and it's difficult, but you've got to be the one that stays positive, that stays calm. Refrain from any kind of scolding or negative remarks. No criticisms. You've got to be the uplifting one, the encouraging one. You can do this. I know you can do it. I know you can make it. Remember to avoid asking, why don't you just stop? Or there's some other statements I'm going to go over in a little bit about things to say and things not to say. Number 3, it's important to gather up the courage to stop participating in the rituals or the avoidance behaviors yourself. If you're helping them by letting them wash their hands, or helping them wash their hands, or helping them do a repetitive action, that is not helping. You cannot be part of the rituals and the compulsions that the person is going through. You have to be firm and stay back from that. And some of the things, so here's some things maybe you found yourself doing that you may want to stop. Getting involved in the rituals by checking door locks, helping decontaminate clothing, food, or even entire rooms. You don't want to do that. You don't want to provide constant reassurance when they seek that reassurance. And that is a huge part of OCD. They're going to bug the you-know-what out of you, saying, is that right? Is that right? Did I do that right? All of that. And you can't do that. You don't want to give in or buy them items needed to carry out the ritual, such as soap for hand wash. You want to be able to buy soap, normally for what you use, but to buy the excess, no. Allowing or helping them avoid certain stimuli that trigger OCD symptoms, such as taking long route to destinations to avoid fear locations. So in other words, you don't want to allow them to have other distractions that calm the anxiety. You don't want them to watch TV so they don't have to sit through the anxiety. They have to sit through the anxiety. Tolerating delays associated with ritual completion. You don't want to, it's okay, I'll wait in the car while you wash your hands. It's okay if you're late going to school. No, that's not good. You got to stop trying to have rational, logical conversations with them when it comes to when they're dealing with OCD, because that's not part of it. OCD, when they're in the midst of OCD, they're not going to think. They're not thinking logically. That doesn't make sense to them. They think they have the logical answer, but they don't. So if you found yourself doing any of those, you really want to stop that. And you want to use gentle reminders. Again, I'm going to talk about words in just a minute, but you've got to remind them that these thoughts are not theirs. That they're stronger than OCD, that they're smarter than OCD. One thing I always said to my daughter is, you have love, and OCD doesn't. That's going to be your strength. Use it. And you can gently, very gently remind them that these thoughts they can change these thoughts. And that's, like I say, you got to be very gentle with that because they can fire back on that one. Recognize the way you have been compensating or accommodating the OCD and discuss this with them, and how important it is to work together. So in other words, you want to let them know, these are the ways I've been accommodating that going to have to stop. We're going to have to work through it. And that you're not doing this, avoiding those compensations out of spite, that you're doing because you love them. And remember, they're going to be facing some of their worst fears. And it's going to be very emotionally painful and sometimes physically painful for them. So you want to keep on the upper edge of that. There will be times when they're struggling with the process and they want to give up. You have to be that cheerleader that says, oh, come on, I know you can do this. Keep on going. You can use humor, but you have to really watch humor. Not everybody sees that in a positive sense, especially when you're in the midst of OCD. So the use of humor can be good because it can break the anxiety. But you want to be very cautious of how you use it, so that you're not triggering them more or anything like that. If your person has a relapse, goes back into doing it, or OCD will come back in different ways. It just seems to want to keep coming and keep trying another angle. Make something else a trigger when you got that one cleared. So what you want to do, you want to remind them that's fairly normal with OCD to have it come back stronger, come back with something else. So you want to reassure them at that point that it's okay, just keep moving forward, get them back on track on doing the ERP work, and just encourage them to keep moving. Because there will be setbacks. That's normal. You, as the compassionate coach, might want to find a support group for parents, or a support group for friends, or whatever, that will help you in this time. That'll give, because in those kind of groups, when you network with other people, they could give ideas that you had never thought of. They might have found a way to do this differently, and you want to be able to have that support around you. You don't want to be the lone person doing this, and that can be, because it can be very lonely being in that support. Remember too that the work that has to be done by them, not by you. You can't solve their issues. They have to do that themselves. And I believe, lastly, I wanted to mention the idea of that terminology can play a big role, and we're going to talk about some more words, but another thought is I always like to remember that they are not the OCD. They are a person that is suffering with OCD. So when you talk about them, you should say, my child who has OCD, not my OCD child, or my son, my daughter with OCD. They are not their OCD. They are a person suffering with a disorder called OCD. So I think that's an important thing to encourage them that they are not this disorder. They are themselves, and this is just something that has inflicted them. So let's talk about some wording. Reassuring words. These are just some examples of things you might be able to say to them that would be encouraging. Yeah, I know it's tough, but you're okay. Just remember, it is OCD talking, and you'll be fine. I know it may not feel like it, but you are stronger than OCD. I believe in you and know you can do this. I am so sorry you're going through this right now. I am here for you for support or someone to talk to. I noticed you decreased your hand washing today. Great job. You can do this. You are not the OCD. So those are some examples of what I call reassuring or compassionate words that can possibly uplift them. Now let's talk about things you don't say in this. Don't worry, I'm kind of OCD sometimes too. You don't look like you have OCD. What? Want to come over and clean my house? You're being irrational. Why can't you just stop? It's all in your head. It's just a quirk or a tic. It isn't serious. Just relax. You just need to learn to live with it. Calm down. It can't be that bad. So those are some of the words, again, you don't want to say. You know, again, you can't really argue with OCD. It just doesn't work that way. So I hope this helps if you are the supporting person with this other person who is dealing with OCD, because it really needs somebody to help support that. If you are that person, these are some things that I think are important for you to remember and to use, because it really does take compassion and patience and courage and strength and persistence, all of those factors, in helping them to move forward and to recover. ERP is the number one way to get through OCD, and this is the person that can help you, encourage you to do just that. So I hope this is helpful, and I wish you the best if you are that compassionate coach, and I thank you for listening. This concludes this podcast. We really would appreciate your comments. Simply leave a comment at www.invisiblewheelchair.com. There, you're able to submit a comment that will help us determine future podcasts. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the podcast, please email don@invisiblewheelchair.com. Remember, there is a corresponding tapping recording for each of the podcasts, with the exception of the interview podcast. You can find these tapping recordings and archive past podcasts at www.invisiblewheelchair.com. Finally, there is relief for OCD, and we at FamilyOCD.com and FocusedHealthyFamily.com can help you find that relief. Again, you can contact us through those sites, FamilyOCD.com or FocusedHealthyFamily.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Invisible Wheelchair Podcast. You can find us on Twitter at InvisibleWheel1, that's the number 1, or at FamilyOCD. So thank you for listening. Keep tapping and transcending your life to new heights.